Hey y'all, welcome back to Christine's Road Spice. So today I'm going to be cooking some Southern style kale greens. I have a video on this already, but I'm going to remake it this time with me describing how to cook it instead of me not saying anything on it. So first I'm going to slice up my kale, and I keep everything on my kale. I even keep the stems. I keep everything except the little wire thing. So I want every bit of nutrients inside of my kale as possible. So I'm going to slice it up really small so that way we can stretch it. Now I don't remove the wire piece until I get close to it because the wire piece keeps it together as I'm cutting it. And it doesn't, I don't have to put too much force in it to keep it all together. That way it can slice just how I want it. So once the wire piece is off, you want to keep rolling it. That way it will not be such a hassle in cutting this. Because sometimes it can be a very hassle. And some people don't even cut theirs. What they do is they just pull it apart. But me personally, I find this a lot, I find it better, and you don't have chunks of greens inside of your pan. Everything is cut portion. So I got the strainer at Walmart for $9.99. I feel like it came in handy a little bit. And I'll show you why I use this because I'm going to add some vinegar to it and salt as I'm adding the greens to the bowl. The reason why I'm adding salt is to kill any kind of parasites, anything like that, because it immediately kills any kind of parasites, the salt. Also, the vinegar as well, it does the same thing. So those two combined together, I mean, you just don't have to worry about any kind of pesticides inside your greens. So I'm going to sprinkle about a teaspoon of salt and then about a teaspoon of vinegar on each layer as I put inside of my strainer. After I added the kale greens to the strainer, I'll be taking it to the sink and I'm going to remove my strainer from the bowl. That way it can cleanse. Because if I leave it like that, the water's just going to come up and it's just going to make the greens not even clean, period. So that's another reason why I don't soak my greens in the sink. I just feel like that it just doesn't do the job for me. I don't dog anybody who don't do it, who do it, because my grandmother used to do it. So, and my mom still does it. So I don't dog anybody that does do it. It's just this is how I do it. So I'm gonna put it in the sink, rinse it off, and I do it one by one or just like a handful by handful. And what I'm gonna do is rinse it off and then put it in the other bowl. Now the other bowl has vinegar in it. So what you want to do is pour that vinegar on top of your greens. Once you do that, rinse your bowl out. That way you're not putting clean greens inside of a dirty bowl. So rinse that bowl out and then start adding your rinsed off kale inside that bowl. Now this is not the first time we're going to rinse this kale off. We're just going to rinse it off this time. And then once we get everything removed out of the strainer and into the other bowl, we're then going to add the kale back into the strainer to rinse it off again. So not only are we rinsing our greens off twice, but we're also adding the salt and vinegar to kill any pesticides. Now the reason why we're rinsing it off is to remove any of the impurities from the greens, and you want to make sure that you're rinsing it off in cold water. Because if you rinse it off in warm water, you're taking all your nutrients away and you'll see it all going down the drain. It's going to be all green and everything. So make sure you use cold water. Now for the fat back, y'all, you can use any kind of fat back you want. You can use neck bones. You can do anything you want for flavor inside of your greens. I'm choosing country bacon. Now, this country bacon was very cheap and it's always in the greens aisle where you find your turnip greens, mustard greens. It's usually over there. So get you a pack of this, and I'm using two two bushes of kale greens for my dish. So I'm going to use this whole thing because, hey, I need flavor. Okay. So if you're only having one bush of kale, you do not need this whole thing because it is salt and fat. And this is how I'm going to slice my bacon. And this knife was not cutting it. So be sure you use a knife that does not have any ridges on it because I was just having a hard time. I don't even know why I keep using this knife. So I'm going to use my handy dandy butcher knife and slice right through it. After you're done slicing your bacon, you want to slice it long ways. And we want them kind of like, I don't know what size I would say it, but you kind of want it the size of a dime. That way it can stretch inside of your greens because if they're chunks, then it's like not a lot of people are going to have any of the fat back inside of their bowls because there's just going to be little less fat back and it's so much greens. And y'all, I'm telling you, the smell of this inside of your greens will have your house smelling like Thanksgiving or Christmas. Like it is the bomb. So now that I sliced it that way, I will slice it again and I'll show you how. We just want them really small, but we don't want them too small where you can't see it. And this is how your country bacon should look. So we have a nice hefty amount of country bacon that we can add to our water. Now, first we're going to start out with 3 cups of water inside of our pan. You can use any pan you want. You do not have to use them tall pans that you see your grandma and them use back in the day. You can use any pan. So we're going to add 3 waters. And I have 4 garlic cloves that all I did was just break in half. You don't have to dice them up real pretty because what they're going to do is they're going to end up getting soft anyway, and you just don't really have to do all that. So once we add the bacon to the water, we can add our greens. Now what I usually do is I usually cook my fat back before adding the greens, but this is a different type of fat back, so I feel like that it's better to cook it together because a fat back is already kind of a little mushy like to where if it gets overcooked, it just wouldn't taste right. It'd taste horrible. So it's okay to add your meat with your greens. But if you're using neck bones, you want to be sure that our fat, or what is it, neck bones? If you're using neck bones, you definitely want to make sure that you cook those first before adding the greens because neck bones have really small bones, of course, and it's not fully cooked. And it doesn't take long for kale greens to cook. So I'm going to add the kale as well. And the reason why I add such little water is because kale has a natural source of water. to where you do not have to add so much water. And if you over dilute your kales with water, guess what? It's going to taste really mushy, and you're not going to have that nice pretty green texture in your kale. So be sure to use a little amount of water as possible. And then if you see it drying out, add a cup of water at a time. But don't overdo your water. It shouldn't be more water than it is greens. So now I'm going to add my foil over my greens. And I got this wok from Walmart too as well for $9.99. And that's not bad. But you got to watch out for these little wok that they have for that cheap, because they get rusted really bad if it's not a cast iron. So my greens has been cooking for 10 minutes. And look, it's nice and pretty and bright and green. I didn't lose any of my nutrients in the rinsing process, so that is a plus. I like to have, I like my greens to be bright green. So all we're doing is just mixing in the greens. So that way the greens at the top get some of that water and some of that flavor from the fat back as well. So you can mix everything around for about 2 minutes. And I forgot to add, you want to make sure that you have your stove on high or medium high. Let's do medium high. I cook my greens on high. I feel like that when the temperature is higher, they cook better, and it does not dry out your grease. I mean, it does not dry out your water at all. Of course, we're gonna have to add more flavor to these greens. So I have a yellow onion that I'll dice up. And there's no particular way how to dice an onion. And if you don't want to dice an onion, you can get the pre-diced onions in your vegetable aisles at Walmart, Kroger's, any grocery store that you live by. I'm pretty sure they have some diced onions that's already diced up if you're just not that type of person that want to dice these things up. So we're going to cut this up. All you need is one onion. Now that we have finished dicing our onion, we could remove the foil from our kale greens because they've been cooking for another 10 minutes. So overall, they've been cooking for 20 minutes. It does not take long for kale to cook. It literally takes about 45 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. It just depends on how high you have your stove. Now we're going to add our seasoning. I have a half a teaspoon of garlic pepper. I like garlic pepper because it has my garlic and it has my pepper mixed into one, and I do not have to add two different seasonings. So I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of garlic pepper. Next, I'm going to add some more of that onions because onions taste so good in greens. It brings out so much flavor in it. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of onion powder. Also, another 2 tablespoons of onion powder. So altogether, we're going to add 4 tablespoons. Now, this right here, all it is called complete seasoning. That's pretty much what it is. So you can get a complete seasoning at your local Dollar Tree, Dollar General. They have that there. So mix one of those. I think I did a half a teaspoon or a tablespoon of complete seasoning. I'm not going to use that much because it does have salt in it. And our fatback or country bacon already is salted. So we don't want to oversalt our greens. So mix everything in. That way you don't have anything, just your seasoning sitting on one side of your pan. You want everything to be mixed in completely. So stir it in for 1 to 2 minutes and let it continue to cook. So I let it cook for an additional 15 minutes. So altogether, it took 35 minutes to cook this kale. And this is an awesome dish to cook, especially if you're doing a baby shower, you're having a birthday party. I always cook this for my children's birthday parties, and they love it. Christmas, Thanksgiving, you can eat kale just to be eating kale. Kale is just an awesome dish to make, period. And if you just want to eat it just to eat it, just as a snack, do it. I do also want to try to do some kale chips. I never tried that, but I do want to try that one day. So I will probably do a video on that too. So I thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.